Welcome back. Aisha Yusufu, co-convener of the Bring Back Our Girls movement, is still here with us. But just before we went on that break, you were talking about how the presidential media chat and the president's reaction to the question of the Bring Back Our Girls, of the Chibok girls, provoked another meeting for January in 2016.
And so, of course, going back to that day during the presidential media chat, when the president was asked about Chibok girls, and first of all, he refused to answer the question. The interview insisted, and then at the end of the day, he did, as he said, he had been asked 3 times about this. And as a movement, we feel that if the president is asked 1,000,000 times about our Chibok girls, he has to answer 1,000,000 times and 1 about our Chibok girls. Those are young girls. These are citizens that went to school. And when he came back to say he had no credible intelligence about them, and he didn't come out to say he was actually seeking for credible intelligence, the movement wasn't happy. And immediately we wrote a letter and asked for a meeting with him January 14th, so that he explained to us what was happening. And this is a president who was insistent on bringing them back, ensuring they get back to school and all that. I have no credible intelligence. I'm doing nothing. And so when we went for that meeting, there was a delegation that was sent in. We had over 100 parents coming in from that meeting. Some of them had to sell their farm produce to be on that meeting. They came all the way from Maiduguri. Before they even arrived here, there was a bus full of them that were stopped by the military. I mean, it took a lot. It was resolved. They even came in that day and then, of course, what did we hear? The military said that the military escort they had coming to Abuja said they missed their way and ended up in Kaduna. And that day, they actually joined us at the meeting. And we're waiting. The president was said to be having another meeting. And with parents whose children had been missing for over 400 days at that moment, that have been crying and grieving, coming in, and we didn't like that. So we insisted that we want to see the president, because parents had come in all the way from Chibok. I mean, the president ought to have gone to Chibok to meet them. Since he didn't do that, they came to Abuja to meet him, and he wasn't ready to meet them. At the end of the day, the president did come in, and there was no emotional connection with our parents. The president was talking of different things. He was talking about the oil and things that were going, how they were fighting corruption, and how the fact that he has, how did he even now put it, that he had reached the peak of his career as a politician and as a military man. And for me personally, I was like, seriously, these are parents who are grieving, who send their children to school. I remember a mother, she was there at that, she was there when the president was saying that she had sent her daughter to school so that her daughter would be able to grow up, and her daughter would always say that she would wipe away her tears. And she often asks us at Unity Fountain, is it with the terrorists that her daughter will be wiping away her tears? And here we have a president who has had all that, the best that Nigeria can offer, telling the mother that he had reached the peak of his career as a military man and as a politician. And we didn't fight that corner. So at the end of the meeting, it came out. The government decided to be antagonistic to the movement. I think people need to understand something. A lot of people come and blame us. What have we done? What have we done other than to simply demand for children of the poor? If the children that were taken are the children, amongst them were Zahra Buhari and Kiki Osibanjo, the same people that are telling us that we are antagonistic, will they be telling us that? Is it because the Chibok girls, is it because they are poor? Is it because they are Nigerians? Or is it because they get to be educated?
21, well, some days after, a couple of months after, I think 10 months after.
2 years
sometime after. In October. 10 months after you had that meeting with the president in January, 10 months after, 21 of those girls were released through negotiations. He didn't instill any confidence whatsoever that perhaps government was doing something behind the scenes and just did not want to let you know.
It did inspire confidence. I told you earlier, we have always had confidence in our government. We have believed in our government, because if we didn't believe in our government, we would not be demanding from them. The government didn't believe in themselves. And said, like what the banner we did immediately 21 we read. Before then we had found one. And we said, yes, we can. Nigerian government can, and they have. And we're waiting for them to do more. And we have 195 right now that are waiting to come back home. And we know that the Nigerian government can bring them back home. See, no terrorists. No terrorists will hold us ransom in this country. And we are over 170 million people. We can come together and unite and face anybody coming at us.
Now, one of the chants of your group is that you will not stop until your girls are back and alive. And you say, the question here will be, at what point would you say that the mission of your group, I mean, we've heard all sorts of stories about, from those who have come out of captivity, saying that, some of the girls were used as shields, some of them are not alive and all of that. At what point would you say that of the 195 girls that you're expecting getting back. At what point would you say that your mission for them has been accomplished?
At the point that each and every one of them is accounted for. At this stage, look, the Chibok girls are a representation of all of us. We say at the movement, they are a representation of those that were taken before and after them. We have to ensure that the Nigerian life matters. At Bring Back Our Girls movement, we say something. No Nigerian is more Nigerian than any Nigerian. So they must matter wherever they are. If any of them have died, we pray not, but if that's the case, they must account for them. They must look for them. And we have said to the government several times, get a DNA data bank. There were times that people said, oh, the Chibok girls were being used for suicide bombing when you had female suicide bombers being used. We asked for that. The Bring Back Our Girls movement has asked for a missing persons register, which the National Human Rights Commission have been working on, and the federal government have taken that on. Those are things that we must use, because first of all, how many thousands that we know are out there? Every Nigerian life must matter. There are other things, like I told you earlier. We had proffered solution. We did an option notes on the rehabilitation of the Northeast, which we sent to the National Assembly and we sent to the presidency, and we knew they got it. They never acknowledged that. But we don't care about that. All we are talking about is that to ensure that we do what citizens ought to do, demand and proffer solution, because at the end of the day, this is the only country we have. Other things that we have done citizen solution to end terrorism. And part of the things I say is military welfare. You know, our soldiers, we see them, they are our heroes. These are people that we have not been by them the way we ought to be, but they are always fighting for us. And we have vast fight that we have also produced and sent in to the government. And these were things that were handed directly to the president himself.
At the end of the day, when you finally say that your task is accomplished, when these girls are returned, and we pray that they will be returned, do you see the BBOG moving, just continue to be a pressure group for good governance, or do you see it moving into perhaps matters around insurgency and perhaps internally displaced people, when you look at the magnitude of work that needs to be done around the Northeast?
There's a whole lot of magnitude, but for now, even with the name Bring Back Our Girls, it's basically about Chibok girls and all other abductees. And over time, people within the movement might evolve to other things. We've had people go on to do other things even right now. But as a movement, I think when our Chibok girls are back, and which all other, we ensure that we don't have abductees with terrorists, the movement will sort of like wind up, and it can evolve into something else. But definitely it might not be Bring Back Our Girls movement as it is right now.
Personally for you, how has this movement impacted you as a Nigerian?
Oh my goodness. I am somebody who, it's impacted me a lot, and it has changed my life. My daughter said something to me one day. I was driving her home, and she said, Mom, you know what? Since Chibok girls, you're no longer fun, and you worry too much, and that's it. For me, a lot of people say, why do you take it personal? It's personal to me. Because I grew up poor. I know what poverty is. I know what it is to be ignored because you're poor. I will go to school in the morning without breakfast. I will come back. I'm not expecting lunch. That was how I grew up. All I wanted was education. I grew up in a ghetto in Kano called Kwanahudu. And when I was 11, all my friends were married off. So I imagine when I was writing my SSC in 1991, if anybody had ever taken me away, I tell you, Mokwe, I wouldn't be sitting here, which I probably be dead. Because at that time, I knew my parents wouldn't have been able to demand for me because they were poor. And this is a country that has no regards for its poor citizens, except when they want their temporary for election. And my parents would not say anything. A country where the poor is faceless, nameless, and voiceless. And so when I see myself, I don't see Aisha Yusufu. I see myself as a Chibok girl. And every day, I remember what it was, being poor and going to school without lunch and expecting and having big dreams and knowing that one day you want to be somewhere. And so I can't give up on this fight. Because the fight for Chibok girls, for me, I'm fighting that for that little girl who was crying to have education, who will cry to people and beg for chemistry textbook. I went right and knew what it was, begging for textbook, and I was telling people I would give A if I can get the textbook, but I never got those textbooks. English textbook. When I started school, the school I went to, people laughed at me because I couldn't speak English. And if I didn't get that education, that's simply what the Chibok girls wanted. And so I cannot forget my past. A lot of people move on. I can't move on because I left a lot of my friends out there. Some of them are dead. I left them in the ghetto. And some of them I have gone through so much. You can imagine by age 11, you had no friend. I was mocked because I went to school. And that's what Chibok girls have had to go through. So for me, it's so personal. Even for my family, they have lost so much, in the sense that the mom that they used to have, being all out with them, being all that, is no longer there. I turned 40 in December 2013. And that's when I realized that I used to hate this country because it was never there for me. I realized that I was now an adult who had failed Nigeria. And I said, no, my voice must be heard.
Well, Aisha Yusufu, I have to say thank you very much for coming on Hard Copy tonight.
Thank you for having me, Mate.
Well, that's the program tonight. Your feedback is always welcome. Kindly use the feedback mechanisms showing on your screen. We have to say thank you so much for watching as well. And thank you always for your comments. Thank you. I'm Maokwe Ogun. See you next week.